Good morning, Zimbabwe, and welcome to Zimbabwe Daily, your everyday platform where we bring you news, information, and activities happening around the country. Today is Black Friday. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing well. Tune in and tell us where you're watching us from. This is a NAYO Zimbabwe Radio Programme in partnership with Accountability Lab, and we are talking persons with disability and service delivery in Chitungwiza. How is the municipality taking care of that constituency? Does it have the disability awareness that is needed and required in terms of policy production and in terms of service delivery? So that is the conversation we are going to be having right here in the studio. Unfortunately, the mayor was supposed to be in studio with us, has failed to come through. So we are going to have this conversation with the representative of the disability sector as well as Chitungwiza Residents Trust, Chitrest. So thank you so much for joining us. Join us after this short break as I introduce to you the guests that I have in studio. Hello and welcome back in studio. And like I said, I do have two representatives coming from Chitungwiza, and we're going to talk persons with disability and service delivery. Welcome, Bruce. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you very much.
So, Bruce, you're coming in from the Albino Association. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization that you're representing.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Bruce Nyoni. I'm the Executive Director for Albino Trust of Zimbabwe. And we are part and parcel of the Chitungwiza community as well as the residents, as we have a number of our beneficiaries and members in the very town. So it is my pleasure to be with you in the studio as we discuss the issues that affect us, not only as persons with disability, albinism only, but as the disability community at large.
Right. Thank you so much, Bruce, for coming. Over to you, madam.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Kuvheya. I'm the Director at Chitungwiza Residents Trust or Chitrest. I'm glad that we are actually here discussing about people with disability and service delivery in Chitungwiza,
Right.
because it's an issue that needs to be discussed and tackled as soon as possible.
Awesome. And we're just going to get right into it. If our, representative from the council was here, he was going to at least give us, an overview of what the council is doing. But maybe I'll start with you, Diana. In terms of the constituents of people with disabilities, do you feel that the council is aware of that constituency in terms of their planning and in terms of the implementation of these policies? Do you see council taking into consideration this particular constituent?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the Mayor, Councillor Maiko is not around. Chitungwiza municipality, speaking honestly, they are doing nothing to cater for people with disability in Chitungwiza. We all know that Chitungwiza doesn't have its own source of water. We rely on borehole water. We don't have boreholes that can accommodate people with disabilities. We don't have offices that accommodate people with disabilities. There's no day, any day. I was born and bred in Chitungwiza that I have heard that Chitungwiza municipality is donating lotions for people with albinism. So honestly speaking, they are doing nothing. And it's unfortunate that even the transport that we are having in Chitungwiza, it doesn't cater for people living with disability. I can say this, when you are not on the situation, you don't understand. Since June, I'm working on clashes. I've realized that people with disabilities are not being catered for. And it's very hard, especially we've got some old women, we've got some children who are working on wheelchairs, who are working on clashes, who cannot afford to go and fetch water from a bowl. We don't have tap water in Chitungwiza, and it's affecting them 100% or more than 100%. Right. So Chitungwiza municipality is supposed to be here. They should have answered us. What are they planning for people with disability in 2022? At least we can hear. Right now, they are having a strategic planning meeting in Chitungwiza. I hope and believe that they are going to cater for this.
Right. Ah, wow. Okay. So that is Diana Kuvheya, the director for Chitrest, and she's just highlighting the challenges that people with disabilities are facing. And like you say, you can never be sure that you will die without going through that sessions and season where you need to use a clutch or something. So we are all interested parties in terms of such policies. Over to you, Bruce. Do you feel like Chitungwiza City Council has people with disabilities in mind as they plan and as they implement their policies?
All right, thank you so much. Really, experience is the greatest teacher. Let me start by saying, let's remove the element that I'm a person with a disability.
Okay.
But let me just speak like an ordinary citizen. It is difficult for one to believe that the city really does have persons with disabilities at heart in their programming or executions of their daily duties and services. Here we had called them to come and face the nation and tell the real residents whom they work with and they represent to simply say, this is what we are doing for you. And the unfortunate part, the mayor couldn't turn up and he couldn't even delegate someone to be with us here. It is behind this background that one cannot be really arrested for mentioning that this raises a lot of questions and answers with regards to one's dedication or the council's dedication towards disability and service delivery. Having said that, let me say it is important for the city to actually note that without the disability community, the Chitungwiza residents will be incomplete because they are part and parcel of the community. Speaking from the statistics point of view, according to the World Health Organization statistics, 10 to 15% of the total population are persons with disabilities. Therefore, this is a big chunk of the populace that needs to be taken care of. What makes the disability community to be more or in need of the service delivery or adequate service delivery are the following factors that I'm going to mention. First and foremost, their vulnerability, which is as a result of their disabilities. Let me just start by saying the disability community is not a homogeneous group whose needs and aspirations can be met through what I can define as a one-size-fits-all approach. But it is a specific, which is so different. It is a community which is so different to the extent that you need sector-specific interventions in order to meet each and every beneficiary at their dearest point of need. I would give you an example: the persons with albinism, with the water crisis. You would see that people will be standing in long queues in the sun. The city itself does not have clear policies on how they handle disability issues and how they empower the disability community. In this day and age where boards can be solar powered, it is so embarrassing that as a city we are still sticking only on the bush pump or the traditional, the manual boards. In a developed country like this, where especially in a town whereby people are ratepayers, surely all these things are issues that we need also to take into consideration when we are talking about seriousness or judging seriousness of the service delivery towards a specific community. And having said that, it is also important to note that the Chitungwiza Town Council has got a lot of opportunities that can be used or utilized to improve the lives and the living standards of not only persons with disabilities, but the generality of the populace who are citizens in that area. For example, we've got the flea markets, we've got stands for shops, you would see that there are a lot of things. We've got marketplaces. But when these things are being dished out the way they dish them out, or they are being allocated the way they allocate them, there is no even reservations for persons with disabilities to simply say this percentage is going to be given. It's more like a survival of the fittest, whereby these endangered species, if I may call them, are losers at the end of the day. So it has been a time since we've been watching all these things as they were happening. But actually, what we cry for is justice for all and fair service delivery for all.
Right. You paint a very glim picture, to everything. I think it's because generally the standard of living for the entire nation is just, below average, and everything that we're going through as a nation is actually abnormal. And in such a situation, like you've said, the vulnerable groups become even more vulnerable.
Yes.
Now, when we then look at the quality of service that Chitungwiza residents are being given on a daily basis, and now they're doing their consultations, the budgets, their strategic planning, what would it be that you would recommend to begin to see the city to do? What recommendations would you give them to then say, this sector, you've spoken about the people with disability not being a homogeneous group, not being a homogeneous community, but being people of diverse needs and wants. The albino community, for example, those who are on wheelchairs, those who are blind, those who are differently abled. Now, how then does the city come through and say, we are catering for this homogeneous group?
Thank you so much. This is $1 million question, which I would not want to trade on the black market. Because you've asked this question genuinely, I would try to respond to it honestly. This is my response. For the past, the city has been doing programming and planning for persons with disabilities based on assumptions and speculations.
Right.
This is an old-fashioned way of doing things. We now need to do things in a holistic manner. The first and foremost, the point of entry to this could be meaningful engagement and active participation through self-representation by persons with disabilities in their diversity, in key decision-making platforms and processes like the budget things, to ensure that these people are there in present and they are representing themselves, not to have other people speaking on their behalf.
Right.
In Shona they say, so we have people vasingapfeki shangu vari kuti why dziri kurwadza. And at the end of the day, so we cannot have people who can be weeping more than the bereaved. Saka tiri kuti persons with disabilities themselves should be accorded the opportunity to self-represent themselves. And in addition to that, how can they do so when some of the venues which these meetings are being called are not even accessible to wheelchair users? We have got people with hearing impairment. When they call for their meetings, there will be not even a sign language interpreter. So when we are coming as afterthoughts, how then can we expect the best? You would see that the sewer is bursting almost everywhere. And you would see, what about those who will be crawling without wheelchairs and crashes, as you are saying, the environment that we are living in, we are in a state which is impoverished for various reasons which would not be mentioned here. So we would see that all those things we are putting citizens at risk. But we are simply saying it's not everything that can be done overnight. But we need to see efforts. Kana pakafa mombe vanhu vanofana kuti takaona dewe. At least it would make a bit of some sense. So we would want to say to the people, or to our city fathers, no, be our leaders than misleaders. The little that people are paying, let's also see the little in terms of development that will be coming the way.
Thank you so much, Director.
Okay, thank you very much. Like what Mr. Nyoni has highlighted, it's very unfortunate that Chitungwiza municipality is very, very much ignorant about people living with disability. At this time, we should be seeing people living with disability being given stands. Unfortunately, we don't even know if there is a waiting list at Chitungwiza because stands are being sold outside the head office, while people who are involved, people inside the management, the councillors are the ones that are giving offer letters, lease agreements outside. So how can they cater for people with disability when it's all full of corruption? We have got just ended the demolition of informal traders. We have seen that people living with disability lost a lot of their properties. They were destroyed because a grader just came, and a person on a wheelchair, a blind person, how was he or she going to run to collect his or her goods. So this is what is happening in Chitungwiza. I would suggest that since I would also ask people living with disabilities, elections are coming. Get elected, go to council, become mayors, so that you can be represented in the council. Because when you are outside, no one will represent you like what you are seeing right now. There's no, out of all 25 councillors, there's no one living with any disability. So they want to remember you. Imagine they can remember people that have voted for them. What more of someone with disability? Even in the management, I don't remember if there's even anyone. So this is what is happening. Get voted for. Stand up so that you will be involved in all what is happening in Chitungwiza. You can go there in the chambers, then you can force them to give people with disabilities stands, to give people with disability marketing vending places where it's affordable, with water, with solar pumped boreholes, with water at affordable prices, with toilets, with bins. Already this is not happening in Chitungwiza. We have seen that right now on their proposed budget, they are actually increasing rentals. Why are they increasing rentals? Are they even checking if people with disabilities, we've got old people, we've got people with disabilities, are they even checking that how can this person afford to pay all these monies? They just ended lockdown. We had the money that was given to cushion people, during the lockdown. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I would say, councillors were told to write names and they were taken to social welfare. When we did our survey, we found out that most people were left out. Who are in really need, they were left out. But a person who is working with everything was written because he or she knows the councillor or the mayor, because they come from the same political party. All this is being politicized.
Right.
And they are leaving people with disability with nothing at all. So this is happening in Chitungwiza municipality. It needs people with disability. We need to stand up for ourselves. We need to speak up. If we continue to keep quiet, they have already forgotten us. They will continue to forget us.
Wow. It continues to, show a very grim face on everything that we're talking about when it comes to service delivery, because general service delivery is missing. The vulnerable groups will also be affected by such situations. We should have had the mayor here because he's got questions that he needs to answer. So hopefully we'll be able to redo this program with the mayor and the people representing council, telling us what policies they have in place, if any, what budget are they allocating to ensure that people with disabilities are also catered for. And for me, I think from what you have said, my observation is that nothing is being done. And because the constituency is not represented, like Bruce have said, we need self-representation of people with disabilities. Now, I want you to speak to that constituent. How do they stand up? Where do they go? How do they become part of this? Because I think you've seen our politics is a bit toxic. Our politics is actually bad. I always argue that our politics is bad for the country. If I am on a wheelchair and I would want to participate to be a mayor, to be a councillor, to be maybe in top management. But there's this fight that takes place, this violence that is just so bad. I don't want to be any further incapacitated because of, the way people view different political positions. Now, how do I take part?
Right. Thank you so much. You have highlighted a number of issues that I would probably try to respond to properly. Hopefully, I will not miss any. First and foremost, it is important for us to highlight that while though we feel probably as persons with disabilities that there is nothing that is really happening in the town chambers, it is important for us to also highlight that one of the reasons could be that we are not engaged and we are not aware. Otherwise, there is a lot of things that are happening. Okay. A lot of things could be happening, but in a wrong way. Right. So you would see that this could lead to the outcome that we have. Otherwise, the city might be doing other things that are good and might be having good opportunities for persons with disabilities that are not even written down, and which the constituency itself might not be even aware of. That's why I was emphasizing that we need to redo this program with the councillor here present, so that we could actually get their voice as well. Because the whole idea is not to point each other, but it's to simply say, how can we improve our relations? How best can we ensure and instill the sense of ownership and belonging to persons with disabilities, especially with regards to the Chitungwiza Town Council? I think this is the bottom line. This is where we want to get to. Then we come to the issues of self-representation and ensure that persons with disabilities in their diversity are meaningfully engaged and actively involved in the ongoing programs and interventions that are being made by the City Council. First and foremost, there is also need, like I said, the issues of the policies, to simply say they should have non-discriminatory policies, in as much as they try by all means to follow the gender policy. That one I've tried to see, I've seen that they are trying by all means to implement that one.
Right.
That's not the only policy they need to do. They need to mainstream the disability policy that was recently launched into their ongoing and current interventions, as well as their future plannings, so that it would be actually holistic. Then we also go to the citizens now, persons with disabilities, the residents. We need to do away with stigma and discrimination against persons with disabilities in their diversity.
Right.
Because the current levels of stigma and discrimination might see political parties not willing to field candidates as persons with disabilities because we're not teaching. So now it goes to the political party level,
Right.
where we will simply say to the politicians, in as much as we talk of inclusivity, this is now where we want you to see that you are really for the people. Because we would want you to have disability policies at political party level, so that it would guide how persons with disabilities participate in political activities, so that they can be nominated as councillors. Then we create the much needed awareness to the community on disability, not as looking at their disabilities. First, we need to look at the person. Then the next thing, we look forward to their abilities.
Right.
If I was going to contest as a councillor for Chitungwiza, obviously I was going to look at the community that would not judge me looking at the color of my skin, but the contents of my character.
Right.
This is what I will be looking forward, and this is what we want. And we second these people to get the positions of power. So there are a lot of things that we need to that comes into play. So for us to get the much needed results that we have, it's through a multi-sectoral approach, whereby political parties need to play the effective role. The citizens themselves, the residents themselves, should also play their pivotal role. The media should also be there to highlight some of these issues that are really unethical and unfair, so that we ensure that we point at the wrongdoings, not for the sake of just pointing them.
Right.
So as to come up with positive moves and actionable points that would transform the lives in the cities that will be coming from.
Right.
Actually, this would be actually good. This is the Zimbabwe that I actually look for. And I don't doubt the ability of the Chitungwiza Town Council to deliver such, given the opportunity and given the commitment. Some of these things, there is lack of political will. There is lack of decent and proper management that is so inclusive, to the extent that they feel that that's why you would see that these things are now. So we would want systems in place that would ensure that things will not be done haphazardly. We don't want hagamaga and cataclysm which is existing, whereby people will be parceling stands as if they are parceling out bananas and the apples at the market. No, we want things to be done in a polite way. It's an embarrassment to the council, and it's an embarrassment to even cities residents. So we need everything to reform, so that we can talk of self-representation. And let's ensure that we have all the places that needs to be fixed with ramps, having ramps, all the road signs Let's have the road markings and the road signs. Hazvidhuri zvinhu zviya zvinongochekwa marata zvinopendwa nevapfana vanokanda mayuthi ari kuita basa rekuputa mutoriro,
Right.
doing all these things can do the same things so that we improve. Even volunteers, people can volunteer kutite road signs so that we don't have the number of accidents that we are having. Vana vachitsikwa and stuff like that. All those things are things that we can do. That is if we become united as a council and as residents and as a nation. We don't, otherwise some of these things might not require us as residents from Chitungwiza only to simply say, let's speak about them. But we would also need other cities to also point at the wrongdoings that we are doing. To simply say, please go and correct A, B, C, and D. We want our mayors and all these top leadership to go and visit, see other cities. How are they doing their things? I'll give you an example of the city of Gweru, the city of Lawa. How are they doing their things? How are they accommodating their people? How are they empowering their citizens? How are they instilling trust into the residents so that we will not have the residents with arrears? How are we not overburdening our residents with what they cannot afford? We know that 80% to 90% of our people are from the informal sector. How best can we reduce these costs? Because we can't keep on demanding the monies for the services we are not delivering.
Right.
How can we negotiate and how best can we have a dialogue so that we can come up with a win-win situation whereby everyone at the end of the day will be happy, so that when people see the mayor, they will say, this is our mayor.
Right.
So when they see our leaders, we will simply say, let's go and greet and respect our leaders, not pointing at our leaders and treating them as if they are our misleaders. I think we need to come up with that.
Treat our leaders as leaders and not as misleaders. Powerful points there coming through from Bruce. Director, do you have anything that you'd want to add on before we round up?
I would urge your political parties to at least reserve some words. Out of 25 words in Chitungwiza, reserve some words during elections for people living with disability, so that we will know that word 1, word 2, word 3, this is for people with disability only who will be elected there, so that we can accommodate everyone at Chitungwiza municipality. And I'm also urging the mayor, I know you will see this, that when he donates what he gives people after the mayor's chair fund, he must at least remember and also cater for people living with disability in Chitungwiza first. Unfortunately, in Chitungwiza, we don't have a quarantine center, although we are over 500 or over 1 million residents. So for people with disability during the lockdown, it was a disaster because we were told to go back home. We couldn't afford to go to these quarantine centers in Harare that were too expensive for us. So I'm urging Chitungwiza municipality, as they plan their budget, they must include building our own quarantine center. We have only one hospital, Chitungwiza Hospital, which doesn't even have medications. We have got 4 cancer clinics, which doesn't have even a Panadol. So we are urging Chitungwiza municipality, Minister of Local Government, Minister of Health, to consider people living with disabilities. How are they going to survive on these situations that we are having in Chitungwiza? And I'm also calling upon all organizations, stakeholders, Mr. Nyoni and others out there. Let's unite with residents, with the local authorities, with everyone, so that we can start the awareness now, before we come again after 2023 to say Chitungwiza municipality with all the 25 elected councillors, there is no one with disability. We must start now. From here, we must start the awareness campaigns. We must go down to the grassroots and speak to people, identify people living with disability, groom them so that they can be candidates, talk to political parties so that they can accommodate people living with disability. I really hope that we will come back with Mayor Maiko or someone from the management so that they can answer us. But we are going to do a follow-up after their strategic plan to see what they have planned for 2022 for people living with disabilities. Then we can engage with Mr. Nyoni and others. We can write to them, give them suggestions that we think 2022 people living with disability must not be left out. They must be included in everything that is happening in Chitungwiza. They must call people living with disability in all council meetings, in all stakeholders meetings. They must be involved in all workshops. At Chitungwiza Residence Trust, we have got a desk that caters for people living with disability. So we are working with people, we are involving everyone so that we can rebuild Chitungwiza. I thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Director, for that candid talk. Indeed, we need to start involving everybody. And how do we do that? We need to create that conducive environment. Stigmatization, discrimination has to stop based on one's abilities or lack thereof. We need to include everybody. And we don't have to look at what they look like. We need to consider what abilities they have that they can bring to the table. This has been a conversation looking at persons with disability and service delivery. How is this constituents affected by lack or provision of the services that Chitungwiza is currently able to do. This is a program brought to you by the National Association of Youth Organizations here in Zimbabwe in partnership with Accountability Lab, where we are bringing the authorities of Chitungwiza to account and to explain to us their policies vis-a-vis what they are implementing on the ground. At the end of the day, Chitungwiza is our town and we have to develop it together. Thank you so much, Zimbabwe, for joining us on Zimbabwe Daily, and thank you, my guests, for being so frank and candid on our issues.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we've come to the end of our program right here on Zimbabwe Daily. This is day 2 of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Let us all be part of the campaign. Let us orange the world and make sure that you treat the next person well. God bless you and have yourselves a wonderful rest of day.